Hi guys, today I'm going to review the Toshiba P50 B 108. I already reviewed the P70, which is quite a similar device but as a 17-inch version, but I'm going to take a look at it now because I like this one a lot more. And I will tell you why later in this review. So let's just start with the design and build quality. As you can see, it looks still very similar to the P70. It still has the quite a little bit bending lid. It is better than on the P70 though. It doesn't feel as cheap anymore, but it still feels like there is a little bit of a gap between the lid and the actual display, but it is definitely way more solid. It feels at least definitely way more solid than it felt on the P70. The back feels a little bit less stable though. It is still a very good hard shell plastic. It is okay. But I think the one on the P70 was a bit harder, but it still does a good job. It isn't the most beautiful one, okay? From the top it looks quite nice with this brushed aluminum look. It looks good, but if you check from the side, it is not the thinnest and just not most elegant design device, but it gets the job done. Let's check what ports we got. We got a port for the charging, gigabit Ethernet to USB 3.0, the DVD writer. On the front we have 3 status LEDs for the power, the hard drive and the Wi-Fi. Here we have a full-size SD card slot, and on the right side we have headphone jack, microphone jack, 2 USB 3.0 once again, one with PowerShare, full-size HDMI and ports for the vents. As you can see here, that's pretty much what you get. Like I said, similar to the P70. It doesn't feel super premium, it's not the most elegant one, but it gets the job done, and for a 15-incher it is quite nice. So let's take a look at the keyboard now. I did already say I loved it like quite a lot on the P70, and things didn't change here, and I would almost say for some reason for me this one felt even better because it didn't feel as slippery, what I felt to be a bit of a burden maybe, but actually maybe this is why I actually like this keyboard so much, because okay, the key travel itself is absolutely amazing. I like it a lot. It has a really great feedback, and maybe due to the slightly glossy keys, I can maybe slide over to the keys because I could type very fast and very accurate with this keyboard. And it is also, as you can hear, quite a really quiet one, and that's what I like. So I really like this keyboard. The design is nice. We also have 2 levels of brightness. We also have function keys, so the keyboard really couldn't have done much better. Maybe not everyone likes this glossy, but I don't know, I really like the typing. The touchpad itself wasn't that great. It has a nice texture. It is not grippy, not sticky, just a right amount. Also the buttons feel okay. One thing I didn't like so much, if I only want to tap, like now, you can hear, it shouldn't already click because maybe you can see it. It is a little bit loose, and but also I have to one thing to mention. This device is a review unit and was already used for almost 400 hours. So maybe it was a little bit better at first, but not the biggest fan because the scrolling was very slow. Otherwise the recognition was okay. Still not the biggest fan of it in overall. So let's get to this display, and I have to say I can't really show you the best possible angle here because my setup isn't really made that well for it, but here you can see it. We have a 1080p 15.6 inch IPS display. Viewing angles itself are totally fine in normal use once you are straight ahead in front of the display. If you move a lot, then as you can maybe see here, it will shift quite a lot, even actually more than it is visible here on the video. But it wasn't really a problem because it is an IPS. Maybe the sweet spot is a little bit more narrow than on a really great IPS display, but it is way better than the TN panel on this P70, that is for sure. The maximum brightness, we already have it here, could be a bit higher. If you are in a very bright room, then you could actually notice it. It wasn't the fact that it wasn't too bright, not bright enough. For me it was always good enough, but I also mentioned, I noticed one thing, as you can maybe see here, if you are below 70%, it just looks a lot too dim in my perspective. I needed at least 70 or 80% for a really nice experience. As you can see here, it can get very dim. and it is quite dim until maybe 50-60%, and it needs 70 for a really great experience. This could have an effect on the battery life, but otherwise 1080p on 15.6 inches is still sharp enough. No problems here. It was fine because no scaling issues at all, and still sharp enough. The white, absolutely nicely balanced, not too cold, not too warm. The black is definitely one of the better attributes here because it is very deep, and for videos and movies it was very nice because it was just a really nice screen. Here on the display, like once again on the video, you can see it. It can look a little bit dull, not dim, a little bit dim, but still, the colors are nice, quite accurate, have a little bit of punch, but they are definitely not oversaturated. So I'm actually quite happy with the display overall. The only thing what I would have to complain, maybe still, not really to complain, but it could be a bit more solid in terms of viewing angles, and for some people maybe it's not bright enough, but since this is more of a desktop replacement, I think it's totally fine. So let's take a look at the sound now. I am quite close to the speaker, and one thing I wanted to show off first though, that I have to tell you, because here it is. I would definitely recommend you to use the Realtek HD Audio Manager. Go to sound effects, turn off this button here, I don't know how it's pronounced in English, and then use a different equalizer preset, like maybe here live, because this will enhance the sound a lot, because out of the box it wasn't that loud and it sounded quite flat and mono. With this live preset it sounds way better, and I will show you this now. So yeah, like I said, with the Realtek HD Audio Manager, the sound is way nicer, it is way richer, has way more bass, it is way louder, so the maximum volume was absolutely fine, and with the right preset it sounded very nice because we had bass, the mids were nice, the treble as well, not sharp, but not muted or something. It definitely was very clear, and that was really nice. It also was way more stereo with this equalizer, so I'm absolutely satisfied with the sound. Performance. We have an Intel i7 quad-core CPU, and usually I always show you the browsing and the experience itself, but I don't think it's necessary because the performance is spot on. It is a quad-core after all, so of course browsing is fast. Of course any modern UI app is fast, and the only thing that isn't that fast, and just check here the stats for the HDD, because it is a 5400 spinning hard drive, and yeah, the values just aren't great. Once again, it is a review loaner and has a few hours, because 400 hours on the HDD will make some notice, but it is just a spinning hard drive, and if you've ever used an SSD, this will feel quite slow, because even in video rendering, where the performance of the system itself was way more than just good enough, but every time it had to access the storage, you did notice quite a delay in opening apps and everything that needs more time. Once things are loaded, things are fine because the performance is good. You also have the ADI Radeon, and I would say games in 1080p with a bit lower to medium settings should be okay, but don't expect too much after all. But still, performance in overall would be very good, but the storage is too slow. Replace it with an SSD if you can, and things should get way better. Battery life, full charge needs 2.5 hours, and that's pretty much the average, I would say, of the battery life itself, because in heavy use I can kill the battery in about 1.5 hours, which is still quite okay for full power. With very lightweight tasks and the dimmer screen, because usually I use, like I already said, 70 to 80%, but with lower settings, maybe 30-40% if you type at night and so on, I reached 4 hours, but this is with really light use, and I would say as an average, expect something for about 2.5 to 3 hours with 60 to 70% brightness, so this is okay. Next thing would be, usually I would talk about the heat, but the heat was okay. If you have to, one thing to remember though, in performance mode, if you aren't plugged in, because right now I will plug in, Only plugged in you have the full power for 3D games, because otherwise the GPU will cap. But also about the noise is one thing I want to talk about, because the heat was fine. But the really nice thing about this thing is the noise level, because you can hear it working right now. I guess you can't really hear anything. Even though the device is audible all the time, the fans run all the time, but so subtle that it's more like a breeze of air, and it definitely didn't obstruct me at all. I didn't really notice it, because it blended so nicely into the whole room that I didn't really notice it. And one really nice thing is, and I will show you this right now if I do a CPU burn-in test. Start it now, just so you can hear 100% how the fans will sound, because right now they should cramp up quick and you still won't hear that much, because the nice thing is, even under full load with full speed, as you can hear, for full power, this is totally fine, because every other in this performance range device that I had so far was definitely way louder, because the fans are still absolutely subtle. They spin louder, of course, because they have to, because this device still has a lot of power. But this was the maximum volume it gets in terms of the noise level, and that is absolutely fine. As for the software though, just a quick look at the start menu. As you can see it right now here, there is a ton of bloat. As you can see here, there's so much going on. Since it is Windows 8.1, you can uninstall all of that, and I would highly recommend you to do this, because there is so much stuff you just won't use. Of course, on the home screen, as you maybe saw, there were also a lot of Windows things, but there is just a little bit too much out of the box installed, which you can get rid of. So I've talked pretty much about all. Quick recap right now. Design, maybe not spectacular, but it gets the job done. Build quality was quite nice. Still, the lid could still be a little bit more robust, but it, as a whole package, it still gets the job done. You have a good amount of ports, all logically placed, more than enough available, so all is fine here. As a desktop replacement, really good after all. The display was satisfying, completely okay. It wasn't the best one out there. We have 4K screens, and there's even a 4K version of this device available with 16 gigabytes of RAM. This one has only 8 gigabytes, but still I would say the display was okay. If you watched movies and so on, it looked really nice. Accurate colors, nice white, nice blacks. The only thing, like I said, viewing angles aren't that big in terms of the sweet spot, and maybe what was for me bright enough could maybe not be bright enough for others. Sound, absolutely satisfying, absolutely convincing, loud, very full, very rich, so absolutely happy with that. Performance would have been really good for a desktop replacement if not for the hard drive. The hard drive definitely did diminish the overall experience, because whenever you had to start an app, or even in video editing, it had to load stuff. And even though it is an SHD with SSD of 8 gigabytes for the cache and so on, that's just not doing it anymore in 2015. For the OS, just for the system, an SSD should have been a way better solution. Battery life, okay, with 2.5 to 3 hours in casual use. Maybe not spectacular, but I think for a 15-inch device, it's still good enough. And maybe I would have even gotten more, because I noticed in the battery life, the design capacity of the battery was like, I think 46 watt hours. And my device only got 39, because it was already used quite a lot. So maybe the battery life should be even better. But as a desktop replacement, which will be quite close to the power outlet anyways, I don't see this as a problem. Heat was also fine, and for a 15-inch device with a quad-core CPU and a discrete graphics, I have to say the noise level was very nice, because even though the fans were on all the time, they were so subtle that I most of the times didn't even notice them. I heard them, but they didn't obstruct me at all. The hard drive was something I didn't really notice. Also, you could hear it if you really wanted to, but otherwise it was okay. And even under heavy load, noise was still good. Software, totally stable, no issues at all. A lot of bloat, which can be uninstalled. So, all has been said. The one thing I have to say though, from what I noticed on the homepage, this is a discontinued device. So I didn't find any prices to compare it with, and I don't know how much it actually would cost. I would expect maybe 900 or so, but I can't really say it for sure, and that's why I can't say if I would recommend it or not. You know the pros, you know the cons, and if you check for yourself and know the prices, then I think you can make a better decision than I could. But the device definitely does a good job. Maybe not a brilliant one. I would wish for it to be a bit more solid and premium, but I can't really say if it's in that price range actually. So this was my review of the Toshiba Satellite P50 B108. Quite a mouthful and I almost forgot it, but yeah, if you have anything else to say, leave me a comment, rate, subscribe. Until next time, bye. I'll be back.